So I'll start off with the first question I had for you. So, how did your early life experiences shape your aspirations and career choices?
It's a great question. Well, hilariously, I originally went to school to be a teacher, to be an early childhood education teacher. Um, I only spent one year doing that and then switched over to film. But I have found, not obviously in my school career, but in my actual career, um, the things that I did as a nanny and learning how to be a teacher and all that has actually really helped with like patience and learning how to communicate best with people who have different communication styles. Um, because obviously every crew and every person is different in how they understand things and how it relates to their job. So in particular, as like an assistant director, what I need to do and what like our big a big part of our job is what I consider like being a liaison between, whether that be between the unit production manager or the director and the rest of the crew. It's basically filtering information for for everyone to know what is needed and what they need. And I think that being like a nanny for about 12 years when when I was in like high school and college and a little after, and learning to be a teacher has really helped my communication styles and being able to let people understand what they need in relation to what their jobs are. So yeah.
It's surprising how jobs that aren't seemingly connected have transferable skills. Like you mentioned
Right.
being a nanny
Yeah.
and compared that to being working as an assistant director
Yeah.
and tying more into that because for those who may end up watching this, so reached out because you worked on Fallout as
Yep.
a second assistant director through my mysterious industry connections. I reach out to people. And so, how would you describe the work that you do, and how would it be different from what people might imagine? Because I think people have a general knowledge of what a director is because it's one of the popular film positions, but what does a second assistant director look like?
It's, that's also a very good question, and it's a very potentially confusing answer. So most people know, um, obviously, what a director does, or they think they know what a director does. The director, in the most base sense, is obviously the creative of the direction for whether that be the cast and the way they play it, or the feel and the tone and the basic creatives of the actual project. An assistant director um, is uh, there to help um, the director's vision, whether that be taking the responsibility of the schedule and the logistics and the day-to-day things that would either impede a creative's mind or just be a little bit too much for it. Um, and so on most jobs, there are at least three assistant directors. There's your first assistant director who is basically the one who is directly working with the director. Um, that being in prep and on set and all of those things, they help make the director's vision tangibly something that can happen. The key second AD, which is what I have been for the last 2.5, 3 years, and I was on Fallout. I am the quote unquote behind the scenes manager. So like the first eight, the assistant director, the AD department are basic managers, and there are three different levels. The first AD is the, you know, higher level. of it, and then you have the key second, and then you have your second in the US. It's a different, they go by different things in other places. I think yeah, it's very confusing. Uh, and so I, as a key second, take the information that the first AD has mapped out, as in, I take the information from our either shooting schedule, our one-liner, which is just basically a calendar with all of our scenes listed, and what we're going to do each day. And I take all of the information that they have already prepped, with or without my help, and mainly in uh, tangent with the director, and I create the call sheet every day. Um, so I take all of the information that they have created and gathered from every department during all of our meetings and prep, for what each department is going to need for each day. So I put it in a call sheet, a document that basically says, these are the scenes we're shooting today. These are the elements for each department, and what scene you're going to need these elements for. Whether that be, for grips, we're going to have a crane and a Libra head, and therefore we'll have a Libra head tech, and all of these things. Anything that would cost us money and or need prep time will be on the call sheet. Um, and so I am the person who takes the information, puts it into something, either hopefully people can read it and understand it, and hopefully they do read it and understand it instead of just calling and asking questions, which happens often. And then on the day, on that shooting day, because I obviously make it the day before, on that shooting day, I will go through and make sure everything is going as best by schedule as possible, and like just doing being on top of any logistics that I need to be ahead of, so that the first AD can be focused in the present and on set with the director, um, while also creating the call sheet for the next day. And potentially dealing with anything that needs a little bit more extra days of prep, like making sure we have background costume fittings scheduled and someone's in charge of them, and we know who they are, because 3 days down the line we'll have, or even a week away, I'll have 500 background that need to be in period costume, but they need to obviously be fit in a costume prior to. So like there's a lot of balls being juggled many different times and ways. And like stunt rehearsals or things like that also need to be scheduled and managed and whatever. So like the day to day very much changes, but it also, uh, on each job, you kind of know what you're expected to do.
In a way, it reminds me just just management position. And
Oh yeah.
you have to juggle different things, such as you said, talking before how you had to do stunt rehearsal for another project, and then you get the call sheets, and then you might get that late night phone call or very early morning phone call. It's like, hey, I need clarification on this, or like, what does this mean? And from that point, I want to take it back.
Yeah.
So when you first entered the industry, what has your career journey been like in the industry to where you are now?
Well, I hilariously was very lucky when I left college, when I graduated college, a while ago. I was very lucky that a brand new show doing this brand new thing was coming to Baltimore. It was House of Cards. Um, and yeah, obviously it was the first streaming show that existed, or original streaming show that existed on Netflix. And um, I luckily, everyone is in one way, shape, or form either a must hire or a nepo baby, because the way you get into this world is you have to know somebody, whether that be it's a professor or a friend, or in my case, my aunt's goddaughter, um, who I had like who knew me when I was like 3 years old, happened to be an accountant on House of Cards season one. And I was able to give her my resume, which had nothing on it in relation to film. And she was able to hand it to the production coordinator. So the way I got into the business was being an office PA, and then I jumped over and helped out all of the rest of season one as a payroll clerk. Learned a lot doing that. And then I moved to New York, got very lucky, got on a job like as because they knew I knew payroll to a little bit of a degree. Um, Got on a job helping out the line producer. Um, and from then on, I didn't stop PA. I ended up getting on set finally and being a PA on set, a production assistant. And I think for 6 years, from 2013 to, I guess, 5 years, 2013 to 2018, I PA'd. Um, I was at the beginning of my career. New York was still very much a movie town. There were a lot of movies, and I was very lucky to work on a bunch of them back to back to back to back. I worked on a lot of TV shows as New York became more and more of a TV town. And then in 2018, I got into the Directors Guild. Um, and I have been an AD ever since. But obviously, that includes a pandemic and a 9 month long strike. Well, combined, the two strikes was about 9 months in total. So it feels like it's been like a stop and start kind of scenario, but I definitely was like, I started out outside of, payroll clerking as a PA. I started out helping out with background and just being a lockup PA and learning the ins and outs of why one does things for background, and then learning how to do a position that only really exists in New York, which is the paperwork PA. In other states, it's the second does a lot of the things that, sorry, a lot of things that the paperwork PA does. Uh, Technically, the paperwork PA should not be doing the production report, but they do in New York, and the ADs are to look over it because an AD has to approve it. But that being said, I mean, I got very lucky early in my career. Once I started PAing, I didn't stop. Working on a lot of movies and a lot of TV shows. I got very lucky for the scale of some of them. Like I worked on John Wick 2 and The Greatest Showman. And I was lucky enough to work on those in two different portions of my career. Of like John Wick 2, I was still learning a lot. And I learned even more from people who, I mean, almost that entire PA staff, actually, all minus one, are currently assistant directors. The one who isn't, it moved over to post. Um, but got very lucky working on jobs like that and learning from the best, and, just constantly figuring out what it meant to be an assistant director. That was never my original intent. All I knew when I was in college and wanting to pursue something in the film industry was I love the storytelling aspect of a visual medium. And I knew I wanted to be a part of it in some way, shape, or form. I had done some writing, but I found that my skills lend better to managerial styles. So I kind of fell into this position because I didn't really know when I started where I wanted to be. And I'm happy with my choice. It's a very hard life, but I do, I think it's the best of most worlds because I get to kind of be a part of a lot of different pieces of the pie. I get to see the stunt rehearsals and be a part of those. I get to help out with, having conversations with the prop department and the electrics and, you know, costumes and being like, hey, this is what we're looking for. And like even like casting of background. It's like, hey, so our director is looking for this. These are the things that we need for these scenes. Like being able to kind of have my hands in all the pots has been really fun and cool.
And besides, well, really networking is how you go about finding jobs.
Yeah.
Is and is there besides networking, was there really anything else that like led you to finding work in the industry, or was it just pretty much you had to know people?
Well, I moved up here not knowing anyone
Mhm.
and not having a job. Um, I think I spent my first 3, 4 months from like, yeah, May, yeah, about 3, 4 months. I spent those first couple months in New York, um, using, I don't know if it's these things still exist, to be fair. I do think it's probably very different in the way that people who don't know anyone or uh, yeah, who don't know anyone look for jobs. But I legitimately every morning would go on Mandy.com, Craigslist. Um, what are the other ones? There's like a production hub, and I can't remember the name of it. Um, and they were a lot of oh, and there was a New York. I didn't get into this one until a little bit later because you had to know someone to be invited. But there's a Facebook group, I think it still exists, called Local Zero Heroes, which was a place where ADs and key PAs and people and like even producers and things on like non-union work would be looking for PAs, looking for bodies and things like that. And so every single morning for about 3 months straight, I would send in my resume. I would look at any of the new things that existed. Um, and hilariously, I didn't actually find my first job. My first job it came to me by my best friend who was my roommate at the time. Um, she was trying to get into the costume department, found an internship on a movie as a costumer, a intern. And so she wasn't getting paid. Um, and found out that they needed a body, just anyone smart-ish enough to go to the apartment location that they were going to be filming for 2 weeks in and help lay down protection, which on a bigger movie, that's the location department. That is their job to do. But obviously, on something this small, it was the line producer and one of the other producers and just another body. We would we went into this apartment and we started laying down cardboard all over the walls and the ground and just to protect any of the things that like the walls and things that we didn't want a camera cart to run into or, a C-stand to scuff up. Um, and and it was also the set decorator because she was there decorating the set those, for the shoot. And so I got on that job it was literally supposed to be a day. And then obviously had a conversation with this woman I was with the entire
Mhm.
day and found out that I knew a little bit about payroll and she was kind of looking for an assistant. So she hired me as her assistant, and I actually, hilariously, my best friend was not getting paid. I was getting paid $100 a day. So for I think it was like probably 2 months, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, I actually got, found a paying job and met the people on that set, met the ADs from that world. Um, and they passed my name along to people, and then it just kind of went from there. Like once you know people and people have your name and they know your face and they know what you're capable of, um, it's not hard to continue to get jobs, especially when back then when more and more things were coming to New York and we had, between 60 and 80 productions um, at one time in the city. It was much easier to jump from job to job and whatever. Um, yeah, that's how you do it when you don't know anyone. It's not super easy. It's all about, kind of getting lucky. Um, and then from there, just proving that you deserve to be there and that you want to be there. I think that's a big key for me, especially when I'm hiring people. I've had many people come up to me on the street, like while we're shooting, or like as a background player, come up to me and be like, "Hey, you're an AD. How do I become a PA? How do I get on set?" And it's like, if you really want to be there, give me your contact information, and I will pass it along and try to remember that you exist and bring you in when we're doing something. Because you always need a warm body and hopefully one that listens.
Yep.
So, yeah.
A warm body that is willing and ready to just do the job at hand.
Yes.
How was a lot of working in retail? That's what retail. That's what retail's like. Really.
I have never done retail or service, so I've always found it hard, especially like obviously this last year with like the slowdown of productions, especially in New York and just anywhere in the US. Um, I'm like, oh dang, I don't know what retail is. I've never done a retail job or a service job. I can watch your kid. I know how to do that.
Hey, being a nanny can take you away. As I have a friend that she's been nannying for the same family for the longest time. It's working out for her. And so going back to assistant director work, is there any sort of formal training and preparation process that you had to go through, or what was that training and preparation process like to get into that position?
So the training and process to be an assistant director, in particularly um, an assistant director, a part of the Directors Guild of America. Um, because obviously, if you're not working on a union project, you don't have to be a part of the guild. If you are working on a union project, you have to be a part of the guild. Basically, if the director is in the DGA, you have to be in the DGA as well. But there are many, trying to think of most recent. Oh, American Fiction, I believe. What's his face? That director was not originally in the DGA. So it was a union job, but it was not a DGA job. That being said, um, to get into the DGA, the route in which I took, which is a very common route, um, you have to have 600 days as an on-set production assistant on a union job. Um, and then you have to put together what we call your book, um, which includes your pay stubs, your call sheets, your production reports for every single day in which you worked as a PA on a union job. It has to be organized. It has to be all printed out in binders. I have seen people have 5 binders full. I somehow got all 666 days that I was submitting into 2 binders. Don't know how I managed it. I do know someone who had about 5 binders worth, and they had a similar number to me. Um, Most people will submit more because you want to make sure that all of your days count, especially your early days. Um, so that is like the process. Uh, the training is Kinda, I would say it's more self-motivated, because any person can get 600 days as an additional PA on random sets, locking up a street corner. And you could get 600 of those and potential and technically be accepted into the DGA. But where the training of becoming an AD and a good AD is um, being a staff PA, which on normal jobs, there's about five to seven, depending, um, staff PAs that are there every day and specifically have something under their purview. Um, it doesn't mean that's the only thing that they do, but it is specifically under their purview. So when I was coming up, I decided I wanted to become an AD. I was like, okay, so what I want to do is have a chance to have several shows or jobs in with each staff position. Those consist of a key PA, a first team PA, a background PA, the paperwork PA, and a walkie PA. To be fair, I only did walkies for like a week. It is not a fun job. You in charge of every single walkie-talkie that is distributed throughout the entire crew. You have to do an inventory every week. You have to make sure that when things are broken or uh, not working, that you collect them and you return them to whatever company you got them from, get replacements, keep very good inventory because people lose them often and they are very expensive pieces of equipment that are so willy-nilly uh, handed out. Um, the key PA is, some people would call them more of the manager of the PAs, but they really don't hold a higher office. They just are the ones who help the second AD on set as someone helping out with lockups and hiring additional PAs and um, being just another hand and another brain in the smaller managerial things that need to happen on set. The first team PA, which could also have a helper, um, are the is the PA that helps the key second back in base camp get cast ready for the scenes in which they need to be ready for and make sure that they get to set and document all the things that are needed for the end of the night for those cast members and in a sense managing those things with the key second as the key second has 20 million other things going on. um, I will preface all of this after already talking, but New York does their AD staff hierarchy very different than most other states. We're just a very different entity, and in the way in which we shoot and how we shoot, our base camps don't look like normal base camps that you would see, or I think Canada calls them circuses. Um, we don't always have the luxury of all of our trucks that would normally be in base camp, like your wardrobe truck, your hair and makeup truck, all of your cast trailers, and any like other kind of trucks. We don't have the luxury here in New York to have a massive lot that would fit all of them. So the way that our world ends up looking is very much a lot more hands in the base camp world and the first team world because sometimes we're spread across 10 blocks. And so like the way that our world works, you want to, as soon as something is called for, you need to get it done. But if you're traveling from 76th Street and you still to knock on the first cast member's door and you need to get to the Honey Wagon, which is on 60th Street, or like down 2 avenues, you're running around like a chicken with your head cut off. It's pretty insane.
And that's what PAs are. That's kind of what you just
They're
know to run
just
around New York City,
running around.
getting those steps in.
100%. I think on average as a PA, I was doing like 25 to 30,000 steps a day.
Wow.
I mean, those were like normal days.
And that's a
Like
no that's a
those
norm.
were like
Wow.
average days because I
Wow.
do remember like hitting on many jobs, especially when I was either a first team PA or a background PA. Um, I remember hitting like 60,000 easily and like hitting like 25,000 like within the first 3 hours of my day.
Wow.
It is not for the weak,
Yeah,
for sure.
most definitely. And 60,000, that is a lot of steps. I think the most I've ever done in one day of track was maybe 30,000,
Yeah.
but wow,
Like
doubled that.
60,000 is what, 10, 15 miles?
Trying to think.
I think it's something like that.
Let me see.
Because
I
like
wonder.
11,000 is about five.
Hmm, Probably. I'm not entirely sure. It must be. I've never done how many steps are in a mile. I should look it up and see how many steps are in a mile.
I think my highest I've ever clocked or actually like looked at my phone to see was like 70 or 75,000.
Let's see.
And those were days where like you literally just don't stop.
Hmm.
And I think those days were probably on average like 15, 17-hour days.
Hmm. It says on average, based on average step length of 2.5 feet, there are approximately 2,000 steps in 1 mile.
So yeah, so
So you did like 30 miles of walking or
yeah.
running. That's 60,000. Wow.
Not to mention like going up and down stairs and like
Yep.
I mean I've busted my knees multiple times on set because of like running up and down stairs and like landing the wrong way. Um, but the best to get back to the question answer to the question is like the best training is self-motivated and um, to take the opportunity to be well-rounded and get um, get experience as each staff PA and ask questions and learn and listen. I mean, the biggest portion, the best the best thing that I've found in particularly as a new PA, the best thing you can do is listen. Um, and then eventually ask questions, but there's so much going on in a day that as long as you're listening to your walkie and paying attention to what those like what the first AD is saying and what the second is saying and why they're saying those things. Um, I have found that being the best training that I ever received. And just being able to, be lucky enough to get those staff positions and learn more and ask more questions.
Thank you for sharing all that. So for those who may watch this who if you're looking at working in New York City, then you just have a small glimpse and you're keeping it real too about what the expectations are. You're keeping it real because you may have to end up doing something like you did. And so pivoting more back into Fallout. Have you had a chance to watch Fallout yet?
I watched it the day it came out.
Okay. Did you enjoy it? Because I did. I
I
know I did. That's why I
I
respond. I know
loved
I
it.
did.
I for one am not someone who usually watches the things I work on. It's kind of that whole process of once you know how the sausage is made, you don't really want to eat a sausage
Yeah.
anymore. Um, I mean, I still do, not the point of the story, but um, I I think there was so much that went into Fallout that I was still surprised and or I was desperate to see how it turned out. Um, and to be fair, I had a hand in every episode except for just the way that it ended up being cut. Things that we did at one point ended up being in one of the later episodes and whatever. Um, Except for the last episode. So the last episode was very new to me, and I was very excited to see how it all tied together.
Hmm.
Because by the time that they were prepping for the last episode, I was in the midst of shooting the um, episode prior, and um, they didn't have a full script, so I didn't even have a chance to read it to know what was happening. So I loved it. I thought it was phenomenal. Um, as someone who worked on it, I had a few nitpicky things, but that's just because like I know what could have been or, other things.
Hmm.
But I loved it. I was very excited to be a part of it.
Hmm.
Uh, I played the game very briefly. I actually, right before I got offered the job, I had just bought Fallout 4 to start playing,
Hmm.
which was, I didn't even know that it was coming, like it was shooting here. And I was just like, one day I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna buy it, see what the whole hype is. And then like a week or two later, I got asked if I would come and play. So yeah, it was kind of insane.
Yeah. I will say Okie Dokie has never sounded so cool before until Fallout came out, honestly. Like I was just before I went to sleep last night, the most random thing when Lucy said Okie Dokie at episode 8, that just randomly popped in my head as I'm about to go to sleep last night. It's funny how the most
I
random things will
mean,
pop up.
honestly, Ella's portrayal of
Yeah,
Lucy is probably it's one of the best things I've seen because it's taking one, a character that doesn't exist in the game, and it's two, taking this character that is incredibly naive, but you can see the potential
yeah.
of strength if she can just get over certain hurdles in the story and in her personality. And Okie Dokie is one of the, it just means so much in so many different levels.
And what else I love about Ella's portrayal is that the character of Lucy knows she's naive too. I
Yes,
love the self-awareness, and Ella
her
played that role.
self-awareness is great.
Ella's definitely going to win some awards if she hasn't already for Fallout.
I hope
Ella,
so.
Ella, if you ever come across this, shout out to you. Shout out to your work. But yeah, that I enjoyed Fallout so much, and of course the Ghoul. I mean, the Ghoul, of course, is one of the
Walton
phenomenal.
Walton is a beast. He really, really is phenomenal in the way in his portrayal of that. And then also, obviously, why am I blanking on his other character's name? Um,
Talking about the character of Maximus.
no, no, no. Walton plays,
Oh, you're referring to another character Walton plays?
yeah, the other
Oh,
guy.
okay. Um,
Well, why? What? My goodness. His past self.
his character. Oh,
Why am I blanking on what his name is?
let's see.
Oh my goodness. Walt. It's Walt,
Well,
right?
yeah.
No. Am I wrong?
Are you talking about Cooper Howard?
Cooper.
Yeah,
It's
Cooper.
Cooper. I didn't work on that job for 8 months. That's fine. Uh, I mean, he was a beast in and his endurance as well, in particular with the ghoul makeup and the prosthetics, because that was a 3.5 hour process every morning,
Mm.
um, which included breaks and things, but still 3.5 hours just getting it on and then working a 14-hour day. Usually we didn't work that long with him, to be fair. He usually never worked a full, he did sometimes, but we tried not to have him work a full day
Yeah, yeah.
in that makeup.
And I'm always, of course, Aaron, who plays Maximus, did a great job as well. I love Maximus's character because you think he's going to be the stereotypical character of like very much for the Brotherhood of Steel, but even he undergoes his own transformation arc, which I'm curious to see how in season 2 that's going to be for him. I don't want to spoil too much for the people because I want people to watch it just like I
Yeah.
enjoyed it. It's funny where I was when I first started watching it. I was out of town for a cousin's wedding, and like the day before the wedding, I was started watching Fallout. in my aunt's house. So it's right kind of connected that memory there. But I had in the list of questions like what it was like for working on Fallout, but you clearly pretty much answered that already. And like you talked even early in the interview what your day-to-day responsibilities on set were.
Yeah.
Like we're doing the call sheets. And so what you just said earlier, that was pretty much the same for the Western Fallout, like doing the call sheets and things of that nature.
Yeah. Fallout was a little bit different. It was one of the first key second jobs that I had that, let me think, was it? That was quote unquote I'll call it a period piece. It's not technically a period piece, but it's obviously fantasy. My other jobs as a key second were more modern stuff. And when it comes to things like that, there's a lot more that goes into it when it comes to prep. Um, and in particular, like costume fittings for background. Hundreds and hundreds of background actors had to come in weeks prior to fit into their vault suits or their raider outfits. And not only is it costumes, but it's also in particular for raiders, we had to make sure that they, like anyone, or Philly people, anyone who was in Philly, like we had to make sure that they had like a hair and makeup test. And a lot of them also have prosthetics. So those were like 4 or 5 hour pre-calls prior to the shoot day that hair, makeup, wardrobe, and background would be called to get them ready, not to mention the cast as well. So, I mean, it obviously the job as a key second is very similar on any job that you do. It just depends on where you focus more of your time. In particular, for something like a fantasy or a sci-fi or period piece, something like Gilded Age or whatever, you're spending a little bit more time in the prep of the actual day, like the on-day pre-calls and things like that. And then also with the scale of it, like we had a jetpack and like a literal jetpack that we put on our power armor suit um, for a couple of scenes. And so there's a lot of things that go into that. And then also we had a dog and several dogs and animals. And that, that means you're also focusing on, um, animal handling and the things that the needs and necessities you need to have a safe set for animals. Um, so Fallout definitely brought its own challenges, but it was crazy chaos, but it was fun.
Hmm. Yeah, and just judging by how enthusiastic it is, definitely was a fun project, and that's what I love about hearing people are very passionate about the work, especially like how you say you watched Fallout the day it came out, like you just had to know, and
I
so
did, I did. Not
I
to
heard
mention I've been unemployed, but like had the time.
yeah, that part too, and so I had heard, great things. Like I heard the show became a smash hit. Of course, it was on my radar. I've never played the games, but I do play games. I am a
Yeah,
gamer. Um, and so of course I knew about Fallout, the great reputation mostly of the series. And so I was like, I gotta check out the show. Fell in love with it easily. And Prime Video, they definitely got some heavy hitters on there for sure.
sure,
And
sure.
and now I'm thinking, for you moving forward, what work related goals do you have in the film industry?
That's a really great question
Yeah,
that I
I
don't
try
know.
to I
I
try to
don't
come up with
know
great
if
questions.
I don't know if I have a good answer. I know for me, I kind of in the same regard that I had about my PA career. I want to spend as much time as I can within the positions that I can do. Um, I don't really have an end game. I'm not like desperate to become a director. I don't think that is always an end game for someone as an AD. Um, I also, to be fair, I think what I would love to do in like if I had $100 million and I had the people that I wanted to work with, I would love to do projects that mean something. I think story
Hmm.
is the best way to,
Hmm.
storytelling is necessary and important in our world, and especially I think the newer, that's a stupid word. The perspectives that we haven't been able to see much of. I love that we're seeing more of it, but I want to continue to see more of it, whether that be people of color or queer people or trans people or just stories that aren't straight white men and rich humans who are complaining about rich things and whatever. Don't get me wrong, Succession is one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen, but watching a family fight about being too rich and not in control over a company that makes millions and millions of dollars just was not my purview. It's not something that I wanted to. I don't know if it's necessary storytelling. Was it beautiful storytelling? Yes. Is it necessary storytelling? I don't think so. Um, but I think that is my, whether that be my end goal, end game, whatever you want to call it, or just my contribution to uh, the industry. I would love to see stories, not that haven't been told, because I think a lot more are being told, but I would love to see different versions of those stories being told. Like, I was very privileged to work on Pose. I love that Pose exists. I think we need more stories. Not not just about, the hardship of the 80s and the 90s for the trans community, especially in New York, but like I think those stories should exist continuously and constantly. And I don't want to, I feel like our industry does this thing. It's like, oh, but we have that. That exists now. We don't need to do it again. I was like, no, but we do. Because how many times have we seen the same story with white protagonists and cis straight protagonists, you know, uh, doing the same story? It's the same thing, but a little bit different. I mean, that's what we were told in film school. Um, Everything's the same, but different. Like every story is the same. Even, Shakespeare, like all of his thing, like anything that's come past after Shakespeare is Shakespearean in some way, shape, or form. uh, or like something from Jane Austen. It's like those kinds of stories. Obviously, we have our foundation in those things, but we've told those stories over and over and over again in different point of views. I'd love to see new ones, and I'd love to help contribute to not only seeing them, but having the people who are telling them be the ones that are being, or the stories that are being told. Um, I like being on jobs where the people in front of the camera, especially if they're minorities, match similarly to the people behind the camera.
Hmm.
I think that's the best way to tell a story. It doesn't need to be 100%, obviously, but like I do think it is the best way to tell a story.
What you said reminds me of a conversation I had with a friend of mine at the time of this recording just last week, actually. And I was telling him about the short film that I kind of told you about. And for me, it was basically making an experimental short film where I talk about grief over my cousin's murder that happened back in 2020. And I was telling him how, when it comes to certain stories, like being in a minority group, it feels like sometimes people want to pay more attention if there's a suffering aspect involved with it too. Because I was telling him, like, looking at my track record, as far as like video content in general that I've made, the things that have gotten the most attention have involved, for the most part, an element of suffering, which I find to be
Yeah,
interesting. Unless I'm just doing an interview about a really popular subject or something like that, but I've
yeah,
noticed that there's like a commonality, there's a trend happening here.
yeah,
And even still with the short film like I just put out Thursday night, I kind of see the same trend as far as like, and I knew this would happen. No, I release it, I talk about it, but just looking at the stats compared to other stuff, that's what gets the most attention. It's like, and
Yeah.
it's kind of like one of those things know, like as an artist, like as a creative person, you kind of have that internal negotiation about it's like, why are the things that involve suffering the ones that get the most attention? It's almost like
Bro.
it's kind of like I had to accept people are, and we're everyone is kind of a part of it in the sense like we're all interested in kind of drama or the dramatic elements in life.
Yes.
Because when you said Succession, when you said like rich people fighting, I think what you kind of said, I think that's the appeal for a lot of people. You
Yeah.
have these rich people, of course it's fictional, but so you have these rich people fighting over money, and it's kind of like, it's kind of like that curiosity aspect, but you're looking at it through like a lens. So you're
Yeah.
kind of looking like from the window, like, this. You're like, oh. But the thing is, like, when you have that separation as a viewer, it's not like you. And it's kind of the same when, like, I see people just in general make like content talking about like an element of suffering or like real
Mhm.
world current events going on. Those things, if it's really dramatic enough, or like if it's like has a certain element of like drama enough to it, whether it's real or fictional, people gravitate towards that.
Yeah.
And it's surprising how people would just gravitate towards that because it's kind of what I told my friends. So, like, for example, like, it's kind of one of the things of like, if you make a short film saying how good you feel your life is going versus if you make a short film talking about all the bad stuff, the drama going on in your life, which one of the two is likely to get more attention just naturally? It's the second option.
100%.
So,
100%.
and that's not even really trying to even paint a narrative. It's just what I find to be a commonality with just different
Yeah.
things I've seen. So the things you mentioned kind of brought that a point up to me.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of thinking like, just with all the experiences you've had in the industry, what general advice would you have for those people wanting to work in this business?
Well, I think my biggest piece of advice is um, if you want to be in this business, I think realizing that this business is not as pretty as it seems. Um, it's a hard business. Um, it's not as accessible as it probably should be. Um, and it should be way more accessible. I think those are fights that all of the unions have been having. Um, Mainly with like, I mean, our normal days are on average a 12-hour day. And that's just shooting. And that's not including like the people, i.e. the AD department in particular and locations departments who are first in, first out, um, who are there prior to shooting and are there after shooting. Um, I think my biggest advice is realizing once you step foot into it, you uh, it's not easy. It is all encompassing. It very much takes over a lot of your life if that's how you're going to play it. It's not a normal job. It's not a normal career. You don't get vacation days. You get time between jobs if you can afford that. Um, you get unemployment as you're waiting for something else to come up. Um, I think the being realistic of what this career looks like is probably the biggest piece of advice. I've known a lot of people who have come in because they want to make movies, and or TV or whatever. Um, and in particular, the humans who are have grown up on the quick access of TikTok and YouTube and things like that. Where if you have a phone or a camera, you can make anything, which I love. But the way that in which, you know, a union job or like a big blockbuster movie works or a massive TV show, um, it's a lot of hard work and it's a lot of, you know, a couple months of not seeing people in your life. Um, and then, you know, the benefits are, especially if you love what you do and you love the process. The benefits are you have something at the end of the day to show that you were a part of. And with the way that our world works now, with streaming and digital copies of things, you kind of get to keep it forever. Um, Even if you don't watch the things you work on, like me, but like they do exist, and you're like, hey, I was a part of this. I can tell you, you know, where I was when we were doing the big number, This Is Me, and The Greatest Showman. I remember where I was standing on the stage watching Kayala Settle like belt her freaking heart out. Um, and those kinds of moments, I think, have really helped with, you know, the stress and the chaos of this career. It's not, I mean, it's not for the faint-hearted. It is a very difficult job. I do wish it was more accessible for whether that be like hearing impaired humans or um, anyone with any physical disabilities. Um, it should be way more accessible. It's not, but um, it's slowly becoming a little bit more accessible. And so I hope that anyone who wants to get into it, whether or not they have something that hinders or helps them, I want people to know that they, if you want it and you can figure out a way to have a good attitude about it, um, you can go far. I, there are three things that I think make you good at your job, and most people have two of them. And if you have two of them, you're pretty set. But you need two of them. But the three things are you have to be good at the job, you have to be on time, punctual, or at least aware of time management. And the third thing is you have to be a kind human being. Um, the best people I know are able to have parts of all of those things. I've worked with many first ADs, I've worked with directors and cast members in particular who are, sorry about that, who are only have two of those things. They're still very successful, but it does give them a little like, you know, that's not exactly how, I don't exactly want to work with you for too long. But I think to be on time, to be kind, and even if you're not great at the job, at least you understand your position and what is asked of you. And I think those things, if you can master two of those three things, you'll be successful, whether that be in the film industry or anything else. But that's kind of where I stand with that.
And you pretty much would say the same thing as far as advice for pretty much any job roles you worked in the industry. So pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because it's, I mean, from what I've heard from you and just other people too, it's very much it's an intricate process of like dealing. I think it's I call it the dealing with human nature game. That's what I call it,
Yeah.
honestly, at the end of the day, because so much
That's a
involves.
very accurate way to
Yeah,
describe it.
yeah, because like we can talk because even just like just other job stuff too, like even the job I'm working with now, like of course there's like the technical like you need to know this stuff for the job, but like my job, particularly that I work right now, it's very much it's gonna be dealing with people like directly, like having
Right.
to call people, having to chat with them. And so yes, having the technical skills, the information is great, but there's always an element of finesse involved. And so that's one of the definitely the key things I get
Yep.
from you from this. And
Finesse and kindness, I think, will get people very far in the film industry and in life, but like in particular with, not that I have done any or whatever, a little, but um, retail or service. Um, you always are getting the same type of person coming into that business because they're always looking for an answer for a specific thing, whether that be food or clothes or whatever. Um, in the film industry in particular, uh, the different types of people that need to be interacted with are on so many different types of levels that it is very much a job dealing with humanity and learning how to finesse them. And the best thing I've ever learned and have taught other humans is um, kindness and hearing someone out goes an incredibly long way. Because at the end of the day, all we want to know is that we've been heard, even though we know that what we're saying can't be changed. The thing that frustrates me at the moment can't be changed. We can fix it going forward, but we can't change what has happened. Um, but knowing that you can be listened to and you can be heard and not just brushed off and be like, it's your job, like just go do your job. I think is a big thing, and that's kind of how I deal with anything that happens in my career and on the jobs that I work.
And thank you for sharing all that. And I'm at the point where put finesse plus kindness on a t-shirt at this point.
Oh yeah, and that's
at
what.
this
Oh man, that'd be nice.
at this rate. So everything you have shared today will definitely be appreciated. I'm gonna say that right now. I'll say that right now.